Hello and very warm welcome to the students and the colleagues and the audience worldwide to Dr. Zia Ahmed YouTube channel. And here today we are discussing part 5 of the novel The Scarlet Letter by Nathanial Hawthorne. Four parts have already been recorded, and if anybody wants to have a view of these videos are available on my channel, so you can access them. Here it is part 5, and this part has been, as the text would show to us, have been titled as Hester at Her Needle, and the title goes to suggest possibly Hester has started to knit some work in order to earn her living, in which she was quite expert, and therefore the title is there, Hester at Her Needle. But the chapter is quite significant for many other reasons that should be kept in mind before one reads this chapter. Number one thing is the original sin that was committed by Adam and Eve, and in that case, both the people were punished and they were brought to this world. But here, in this case, the Adam is quite free. He is not given punishment by the society. It is so this is the woman which has been punished, which has been given a separate place, and by not including her into the social spaces which are available to every woman. And we should also see in this chapter that women are most of the time showing their grudge to her as compared to men's hatred for her sin. It is the women who are showing this hatred more and more. And the society has ostracized her. They are not letting her come into the main fold, mainstream. They are letting her live at the edges of the society. So in that way, she is one of the ostracized. She is one of the person who cannot be included in the mainstream of the society. Such was the harshness of Puritan America at that time, which the story is referring to. Not only this, it is also important with respect to the entry of the small baby of Hester, that is Pearl, as she has been named by her, that also enters in this chapter and has got significant description of the child psychology as well as the impact of the adult attitude towards the other people. That all has been talked about in this chapter. So this chapter should have been named as an ostracized woman instead of the Hester at the needle. So let us see what we can have in this chapter. I have marked the important spaces with green so that one has not to go through all the lines here in the lecture. However, students are expected to go through that. For example, the very first passage says, "Thus the young and pure would be taught to look at her with the scarlet letter flaming on her breast, at her, the child of honorable parents, at her, the mother of a babe that would hereafter be a woman, at her, who had once been innocent, as the figure, the body, the reality of sin, and over her grave, the infamy that she must carry thither would be her only monument." Such passages are shown to the reader in order to let us know that there is a problem which arises because of one sin. The problems can arise. Before determining of the sin, the same woman was thought to be a woman, a mother, and she could be thought as a kind of pure person, as a kind of innocent person. But as soon as the label has come from the society that she is an adulteress, and the scarlet letter A, the red scarlet letter that is on her breast, that goes to show that she's a sinner. And when she's a sinner, she doesn't remain a normal woman, a normal mother, or a normal social being. That is why she's not going to earn the marks from the society as a normal human being or a woman, but rather a sinner. So she's being punished not as a woman, she's not being punished as a human being, but she's going to be punished as a sinner. The punishment of the sin, what type of it should be, who is to determine that, and why it is being given, it's all human being deciding all that. And that is what the shifting has taken place from one phase of life of Hester into another phase of Hester. Let us see what more we can have about this chapter, part 4, which is about her daughter and about this woman Hester as well. Here is another paragraph which would definitely talk about the greater details about Hester's life after she has been labeled as the sinner, and she has to stand and show her sin to the people by making her available for many hours on the platform. For example, this says that Hester Prynne therefore did not flee on the outskirts of the town within the verge of the peninsula, but not in close vicinity to any other habitation. There was a small thatched cottage. It had been built by an earlier settler and abandoned because the soil about it was too sterile for cultivation, while its comparative remoteness put it out of the sphere of that social activity which already marked the habits of the emigrants. It stood on the shore, looking across the basin of the sea at the forest covered hills towards the west. A dump of scrubby trees, such as alone grew on the peninsula, did not so much conceal the cottage from view as seen to denote that here for was some object which would fain have been, or at least ought to be, concealed. So much if we try to look at the paragraph, this is the space which is abandoned space, which is a lonely space, which is separated from the main village. There Hester has decided to live. And besides that, the writer also indicates this is the space which has been abandoned by some early farmer because it was not that fertile. It was a totally sterile place where nothing can grow. At such a place, Hester has decided to live because it's an abandoned place. So it means that the abandoned spaces could be occupied by Hester, but the mainstream spaces could not be occupied. Most of the immigrants would come to America and they would occupy the spaces whichever were available. Same thing has been done by Hester, that after the labeling of a sinner woman, she is there not to include herself in the main settlement, but to live like any migrant who comes first of all and takes the space and lives there. So she is now a migrant from her safer, religious, accepted norms of the society towards those things which she possibly is not, but she has been labeled so. So in this way, she is living the life of a secluded person or a seclusion person after the label of the sin which has been put on her. And so we can also see that this space is not that hidden. She cannot 100% hide herself. It is the space which is situated around, though trees are grown and many other things are grown around it, but still it is not possible to conceal it totally. So Hester was living in a way that she was living separate, but she was visible as well. So this is the kind of third space she has earned to live after the labeling of the sin on her. And the passage continues in the sense, the passage reads like this: in this little lonesome dwelling, with some slender means that she possessed, and by the license of the magistrate who still kept on inquisitional watch over her, Hester established herself with her infant child. A mystic shadow of suspicion immediately attached itself to the spot. Children too young to comprehend whereof this woman should be shut out from the sphere of human charities would creep nigh enough to behold her plying her needle at the cottage window, or standing in the doorway, or laboring in her little garden, or coming forth along the pathway that led downward, and discerning the scarlet letter on her breast would scamper off with a strange, outrageous fear. This is the second part of the passage that I selected. This passage is showing us how the innocent children who didn't know about sin, who didn't know about the things which were happening with Hester, they with their eye. How does Hester look like? For example, when the children looked at her, that she is living separate from the mainstream, and she is there, not in the village but outside of the village, they would want to come and out of curiosity would like to see what is happening around her. And that is why they would come close to the cottage and would like to look at her, and they would see they would see that a woman is there and her daughter is there, but out of fear, when they would see the scarlet letter on her breast, they would run away. They saw Hester standing sometime in the window, standing sometime in the door and doing her embroidery work, but they would run away out of fear. So this is the way an innocent child would look at Hester, and that child would be fearful because of the situation in which Hester was present, because of the separatedness, because of the seclusion in which Hester was present. So it caused fear in the mind of the innocent people. What could be the similar type of fear in the mind of our own child, in the mind of that Hester also? This is very significant to know here. So whatever the things has been done with Hester, they are creating fear, and that is the fear which is responsible for creating a fearful image of Hester as well. And the innocent children are looking at her in that way. So therefore, the chapter throws a lot of light on the kind of style of life she has adopted and the way she is living at this moment. So let us see more and into the chapter what happens further. Let's proceed to the next passage and see what are the responses of other things on her and how she is doing with respect to her needlework as well. By degrees, not very slowly, her handiwork became what would now be termed the fashion, whether from commiseration for a woman so miserable a destiny, or from the morbid curiosity that gave a fictitious value even to common or worthless things, or by whatever other intangible circumstances was then as now sufficient to bestow on some person what other might seek in vain, or because Esther really filled the gap which must otherwise have remained vacant. It is certain that she had ready and fairly quitted employment for as many hours as she saw fit to occupy with her needle. Vanity, it must be, chose to modify itself by putting on for ceremonial of pomp and state in the garments that had been wrought by her sinful hands. But first, let us see what is the kind of occupation that Hester has adopted. Hester has taken the occupation of needlework. With the needlework, she had decorated her scarlet letter, and the severity of that scarlet letter might have gone down or its visibility might have reduced, but the sin is quite glowing on her breast. But on the other hand, she's using the needle and decorating number of dresses, number of caps, and number of other things which are being purchased by the people and liked by the people, and they are happy with that, and that is why the writer says that she has filled the gap. Possibly the gap would have remained, but it is her skill which she is selling. Now the big question is that on the one hand the woman has been ostracized and she has been thought to be a person who should not be talked about, who should not be talked to, who should not be touched at all, who should not be related with anyone. But that's the very woman whose work is being appreciated, whose work is being liked by the people. For example, the later part of the passage shows that her needlework is liked by number of people. For example, her needlework was seen on the ruff of the governor. Military men wore it on their scruff, and a minister on his band. It decked the baby's little cap. It was shut up to be mildewed and molded away in the coffins of the dead. But it is not recorded that in a single instance her skill was called in to embroider the white veil, which was to cover the pure blushes of a bride. The exception indicated the ever relentless vigor with which society frowned upon her. So here are some of the examples which show that how her needlework was appreciated. For example, the governor's ruff was decorated with her work. Military men wore the scarf decorated by her. The minister would wear his band, and the baby's little cap would also be decorated. And many other things were being done by her, and she was being appreciated. But in the end of the passage, the writer says that it was only the veil of a woman who was going to become a bride that was never talked about, that it has been decorated by Hester. It was never talked about, never liked about. That goes to show the woman would not like to have any connection with Hester and would like to have any decoration from her. Otherwise, men were having. So I am reminding myself here the affair of a widow in India in Hindu society, that when one becomes widow, nobody invites her to the functions, and nobody invited her to talk to, or to, rather she was thought to be the danger to the well-being and to the happy life of the new couple, and that's why she was not invited there. So in the same way, although the case is a little bit different, has been declared a sinner, her husband is not dead, but whatever the case may be, she's declared a sinner, and that is why no woman likes that the effect or influence or the shadow of her sin should come on her, and that is why she's not liked at all. So, here in this passage, the writer is trying to talk about the difference between the attitudes of men and that of the women, as it has been talked about again and again that women mostly play a very big role in undermining their own fellow human being or on women, and that is why the women are talking to her in that way. We shall have another passage also in the same chapter where the attitude of the women will be talked about in detail, but first let us talk about Pearl, the daughter of Hester, and it starts from here. But the passage, first of all, has come to talk about the beauty, the style, the kind of qualities which Hester Prynne possessed, because of which she could make her things very beautiful. So this paragraph talks about that. It reflects on the passion, on the skill, on the kind of player she drove out of all work, on the kind of money she drove. All these things in the skill of Hester have been talked about. So she's a very skilled woman, very beautiful woman, but she is unacceptable because she's a sinner. So going down here, we can see what is happening with her. She says, in all her intercourse with society, however, there was nothing that made her feel as if she belonged to it. every gesture, every word, and every silence. And in this whole passage, we again come to know about the type of life she has adopted. That she was thought to be a different person, she was thought to be a separated person, and this kind of attitude was all the time in her mind. And she was facing all that, bearing all that, but she didn't talk to any other people with that, and she didn't even requested anyone that she should be taken in a different way. She had accepted all that, and that goes to show the courage of the women, the style of the women, the power of the women, the resilient power of the women with which she was surviving. So instead of falling on the ground, instead of going on to the knees, and instead of begging for any support, she is there to support herself. And this is the modern prototype of a woman, that if society is not ready to accept her, she would try to live on her own. And as a result, we can see that she is living alone with her child, and she is living with her work, and she is not getting any benefit from the society, which might have automatically come to a beautiful woman like her. And in that way, we continuously go down and see more things about her. Like how did the women treat the other women treat her? That's the passage which deals with that. It says, for example, dames of elevated rank likewise does she enter the door of her occupation were accustomed to distill drops of bitterness into her heart, sometime through the alchemy of quiet malice by which women can concoct a sort of poison from ordinary trifles, and sometimes also by a coarser expression that fell upon the sufferer, defenseless breast like a rough blow upon an ulcerated wound. Her Hester had schooled herself long and well, and she never responded to these attacks, save the flush of crimson that rose on her eyes, etc., etc. She was a patient, a martyr, indeed, but she forbore to pray. This paragraph also throws a lot of light on her character and courage that she was showing. Although many of the women would not talk to her, and if they came in touch with her, they would like to look into her eyes and talk to her, and they would show with their style and with their eyes some kind of malice against Hester, some kind of hatred against Hester, and they would try to concoct certain things about her as if she was a ghost, as if she was somebody else, and she was not a normal human being. But Hester, even after facing all that, was bearing all that with patience, and she was rather living a life as a powerful woman should live. So, in my opinion, Hester is not a woman who would easily accept the attitude of society. She has accepted in the sense that she doesn't want to fight, but she wants to survive for the sake of her child, and she is surviving definitely. She has been termed as the writer that she was a patient, she was a martyr. So this is a kind of a word the writer is using for her. Indeed, but she forbore to pray for enemies, lest in spite of her forgiving aspiration, the words of the blessing should stubbornly twist themselves into a curse. So she even didn't curse other people, didn't try to say bad words to the people, although the people said all these bad words toward her. So clergymen mostly paused in the street to address words of extortion that brought a crowd with its mingled grin and frown around the poor sinful woman. If she entered a church trusting to share the Sabbath smile of the universal Father, it was often her mishap to find herself the text of the discourse. She grew to have a dread of the children, for they had imbibed from their parents a vague idea of something horrible in the dreary woman gliding silently through the town with never any companion but one only child. So this passage is very simple and very important passage, because it goes to talk about the life of Esther when she was present there. Sometimes she was stopped on the way in the street, and the clergyman would like to induce her, would like to talk about her sin, and would like to know the name of the sinner. At that time, crowd gathered around her. Again, she had to face these humiliations. And next, also when she went to the church, she was not given space in that way as should have been given, and in that way she was declared to be a very strange type of creature. And so when she went into the markets or into the bazaars, and the children looked at her, they thought that perhaps she is a person who should be avoided at every cost, because such kind of discourse was going on around her, and she was only having her child beside her, no company was present beside her, and that's why she was thought to be a very strange person. So this is not only a physical ostracization, but also a mental ostracization, which Hester is going through. And because of that, her courage is increasing, it's not decreasing at all. She's not dampened in spirit. She's all the time thinking what type of style she has to adopt in order to survive, and she is surviving definitely. That is the kind of resistance she is offering as a woman to the society when the society is treating her in such a way. Let's see more things if we can find in this chapter, possibly. more things are not available. The chapter is going to end very soon. Her child, Pearl, as she has named her, that child is also witnessing all that, but only with the wisdom of a child. And the significant thing about the child is that the child does not know at all what is happening. The child does not have any idea of the sin and that of the bad marriages and good marriages. She doesn't know who the father is going to be. So the child is 100% innocent. But the way society is treating the child, the way society is treating her mother, definitely a type of rebelliousness will come in the child as well. So the chapter also talks about the growing of Pearl, the daughter of Esther, that the society would call the product of the sin, that human being have decided so, and in that way the child is growing into somebody who may be even very beautiful like Hester, but then she would be shunned and avoided in that way. It is to be seen how she would make her place in the society. That's really very important to know. So the chapter throws light on the resilience of the woman Hester, how she has faced, how she has competed, how she has resisted the kind of onslaught which was made on her, not only physically but also mentally. And she is standing strong against the system. So, this is something very important here to know, that a single woman can stand against one whole system and can survive and can face with that. This goes to show the power and resistance of that woman, that she was doing against the decision of the sin, labeling of the sin against her. Nobody gave her any doubt, benefit of doubt, that she didn't have a kind of information that her husband possibly may be coming. She had found the information that he's dead, and as a result, the ship is drowned, and as a result, she was free. Nobody gave this benefit, but then definitely she did. Without asking the society, without taking the approval of the society. The society can be very harsh when we do the things without the approval of that, and this is going to be the proof of that. But all burden is coming on one woman who is trying to show her resilience, who is trying to show her wish to survive and give good life and flourishing life to her daughter. She is trying to do all that. And this is what the life of Hester Prynne is going to be after she has been declared to be a sinner, and the letter A, the scarlet letter, has been put on her breast in order to show all the time that she's a sinner and face the humiliation as well. So thank you very much for watching. Here our lecture stops for this day. Hope to see you in some other lecture. If you like it, do not fail to hit the subscribe button as well as the like button. Any queries or any comments may be posted on YouTube or on Facebook. Thank you for watching.